Welcome back. South Africa could move towards an even deeper junk credit rating this evening when ratings agencies Moody's and S&P Global release their reviews of the country. As things stand, South Africa has a sub-investment grade with all three major credit ratings agencies. Now, a lower grading means it's seen as a riskier country to lend money to. Let's speak to Lumkile Mondi from Wits University School of Economics and Business Science. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. First, let's start with your predictions. What do you think we can expect tonight?
Tonight, you're going to expect the rating agencies to keep our rating agency, our rating where it is, because government has come up with a plan, the Reconstruction Economic Recovery Plan. The Minister of Finance, in the medium-term budget policy statement, has announced programs and plans on how he looks forward to try and curtail some of the expenditures which have pushed South Africa closer to a fiscal cliff. Based on those, they'll allow then South Africa to implement, and probably around March, when the budget has been presented, they'll again come back with a view as to whether the budget is realistic or not and make a decision to cut us. Tonight, I expect it to stay the same.
Yeah, you think that plan is going to work? Because in the past, of course, they've raised issues about policy certainty in South Africa. You think they'll cut us some slack because of COVID-19?
Not at all. I think, if you look at South Africa, really, it's had amazing plans, but all of them have come to naught. So really, everyone is taking a gamble about policymakers of South Africa, whether they can follow through on the paper and plan that they put on the table. So it's a well-known story, and hence we've got all these commissions going on. So it's a matter of looking at what works in South Africa. We know that South Africa has got very strong financial services, has got an independent central bank, and a very robust private sector, with some of its multinationals doing very well internationally, such as MultiChoice, the telecoms companies such as MTN. So these tend to protect South Africa really for a complete junk status and shying away by investors, because there are these pockets of excellence. But if you look on the other hand, the policymakers fail dismally across many areas, whether it's energy, whether it is the education system, you name it. And that's where the weaknesses are. And that's what really gives credit rating agencies the power to downgrade us as they've done, because the other side is so weak and incapable that it's failed in all these promises that's put on the table.
Yeah, let's not be optimistic for a second. What happens if they do bring those ratings down?
Well, really, South Africa, the way it's going, because it's refusing to take those hard decisions. Those hard decisions means a transition from fossil to renewable energy. They're cheaper, and more importantly, also they can be deployed at a much faster rate than the fossil fuel programs that you've seen, such as Kusile and Moody. On the digitalization side, where we've struggled under COVID, particularly those of us in the education and training area, where some of our students live in areas outside peri-urban as well as metropolitan areas, and therefore access is difficult. So if you cannot make those decisions, you just make it very, very difficult for credit rating agencies. So really South Africa sorry, let me just add also the water issues that we are seeing in the Greater Vaal, and the continuous power outages in many metros, including ours in Joburg, including water. So all these issues really indicate to us that South Africa is slowly sliding down. And once you start that slow downward fall, it's very difficult to recover. It requires a different leadership. It requires making and taking those tough decisions. And I just don't think that this government is able to do that.
Yeah. And what about the impact on people? Because people who are watching this at home would want to know, if we are downgraded, what the consequences are on their bottom line.
They're huge. So if you're downgraded, remember, most of our financial institutions that I've talked about, who are really stars in this complex South African economy, including the central bank, it will mean that their access to foreign currencies will be much more expensive than it was before. And therefore, if they borrow outside at a higher rate, they have then to share that burden of cost with companies and therefore with individuals like myself and yourself, Shahan. So that's a challenge for us, that if we get downgraded, the cost of borrowing are going to go very high, not only for banks, but for companies, but also individuals, particularly given that in the past 2 years, we've seen interest rate coming down and the burden of debt coming down to many of us. So this will impose more burden on already stretched households, particularly those 1.8 million that have lost their job during the lockdown and the destruction of many companies because of the lockdown. So it means more hardship for us. That is, more of those challenges that we have, such as crime, such as violence, and continuous falling infrastructure. It won't be good for us, Shahan, if we are downgraded. It won't put a good picture at all.
And you look at things like the Third Investment Conference and promises that we get from other countries and businesses about investing in South Africa. Are all of those things good enough for us to get things back on track in this country?
They are part of a bigger puzzle. So they take us somewhere. Unfortunately, it's very interesting. So you've got this wonderful presentation by South Africa on Invest SA and the pledges that are made by these investors. And then 2 days later, the former president decides to walk away from a commission of inquiry that he appointed, having been summoned to appear before it. So investors are looking, those that had pledged 2 days ago are saying, what are we getting ourselves into? Is the rule of law in South Africa going to sustain itself? Not mentioning what you're talking about, Shahan, earlier, relating to the public broadcaster, where decisions have to be made. Your institution and many others have cut a number of jobs. Why should the public setup be different? So the fact that the South African government cannot make those hard decisions and the former president decides, despite that has been summoned, walks away, it's very, very bad picture and a poor sale for South Africa to those investors, because they think that, okay, these guys, what about my investment? Will it be safe? Because suddenly they can't make any decision, so my property won't be protected. So I'll keep everything in my pocket and wait and see. So those pledges that you saw 2 days ago are wait and see, given what I've painted, that inability to take or make those tough decisions by the policymakers is South Africa's Achilles heel.
Thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate it. Lumkile Mondi from Wits University School of Economics and Business Science.